Yes. Shalom, Chaverim, shalom, and greetings to all others as well. Let's address this the long and the short of this matter. The question that some question. They say, and they ask, can a woman teach? Can a woman teach? I mean, what do you mean, Chaverim? Can a woman teach? The mother is the first teacher, the first instructor of children. Going through today's daily psalm, Mizmor Mim Chet Mem Chet, Psalm 48, and a midrash, a study on the psalm, and it says it's not what your mother says, right? One is not what one's mother says, but what one's neighbor says, right? And based on that ancient proverb, ancient wisdom right there, we began to meditate on this question again. That's some question. I think we touched on this previously in another vlog or vid, but let's answer this as succinctly, and to the point as possible. The mother, right, who is a woman, right, within the true sense of things, is the first teacher. The first teacher until a son or a boy comes to that rite of passage. Now, Hebraically, we call it the bar mitzvah. Some might say bar mitzvah. We say bar mitzvah. And then from the mother's instruction, right, from the mother's teaching. In fact, even in HaTorah, right, in HaTorah, it says, my son, hear the instruction of thy father, forsake not the law of thy mother. That's Proverbs 1 and 8. Now, I think what's happening, a lot of Christians and also some of the ain't right Israelites, and putting you on notice right here, if there is such a thing as going to hell, right, as many Christians, they believe, you're going to hell, right? And just to make sure you'll go to hell rightly, right, for right reasons. If you don't want to hear this and put it in proper context, it's all about the context. Now, do we suffer a woman to usurp authority over a man? No, not that. You see, I think they're confusing things. A lot of people confuse things. They're quoting maybe a verse here, just lifting a verse out of its context. It's like, suppose you wrote someone a letter, right? You wrote a letter, right? Many paragraphs, many lines to the letter, right? Many pages and there's paragraphs, and you said all sort of things right there. And somebody just takes one particular line, right? One line out of there and go on and start lying, right? Start lying, take this line out of context. And that's what has happened with the scriptures. And I think it's Timothy. Is it in Timothy? Let's just bring that up right here. Right there. Here we go. 1 Timothy 2 and 12. 2 and 12. Now, you see the word that's highlighted, usurp. Right here, the apostle Paulos, Rav Shaul, 1 Timothy, his instruction to his disciple Timotheos, 1 Timothy 2 and 12. But he says, I suffer not a woman to teach, nor usurp authority over the man, right? And it says a man over the man, but to be in silence. Now I know people say, oh, you see, this is sexist. No, you're foolish if you're thinking that. You're taking this out of context. That's why I made the example about you writing somebody a whole line, like a whole letter and thing, and then somebody takes one particular line out of there and just superimposes their particular idea. There's a context right here, right, to the order, right? This is after the mother, the first teacher of the child. A good mother, right, a good woman who happens to be a mother should instruct her child, her children, but especially the sons, right, for further education. Right, for further education, for further instruction. That's why it's called a rite of passage and the rite of passage, right? Here we're speaking about the order within the church. Here we're speaking about the order in the church within the New Testament, the Brit Chadasha, the Hadis Kidan, the New Testament sense. The church in type, right, is based on the tabernacle, based on the pattern. See that you do all things according to the pattern. So there is a particular order of responsibility. It's like, call the midwife, right? Call the midwife. If some man runs along, it's not saying that a man can also help and assist, and men have not helped and assist in bringing forth children to birth, so forth and so on. But a midwife, you know what I mean? I mean, who's a midwife? At one time, the men were quarantined, so to speak, from that whole process. Wait outside. You wait outside. This is not the role or the place for you to assume authority or responsibility. So the context here in 1 Timothy 2 and 12, right? 2 and 2. Even the word silence is interesting. Let's just touch on silence for a moment, because a lot of people don't know what they're talking about. It's quietness. Quietness. It's like this. It's like this, y'all. It's like even some of the sisters and the daughters, the mothers, the wives. One particular sister says this. She says that I'm almost like her husband, in the sense we like to turn it up when we're reasoning. You know, like, you know, man, we reason in a certain way. If you ever see like a group of men in a study, right? Even in some like the yeshiva and other studies, you know, our voices might go up, maybe loud, we may be on point, and for many women and most women, that's not the way that disturbs them. They don't get it like we men might get it from that sort of, you know, disquietness, you know, like we just get in on it. We get on that reasoning, so forth and so on. We be hard on one. Like somebody says something, even if it's true, we say, well, how do you know? We make them prove that it's true, and our voices and the way that we go about it is even different, right? But here, when it says a woman learning in silence, a woman learns in a different sort of atmosphere. Right? You nurture the woman in a different sort of atmosphere, because there's a different sort of nature according to the nature of natures, the great creator. There's a different nature for woman. So even when you look at this particular word here from the Koine Greek, right? Hesukia. What is hesukia? Hesukia is quietness. It's a description of the life of one who stays at home doing his own work and does not officiously meddle with the affairs of others. That's not the role and responsibility for the real mandem of the community. We have a responsibility, right? When it says about the shoftim and the shotarim, judges and officers shall you appoint in all your gates. So from son, there's a responsibility for real man, right? If you ever come to that point of maturity, if there's ever a rite of passage. See, there used to be rites of passage, right, into manhood. Not because you just big, you born big, you know what I mean? You born foolish, you born big, but there's a rite of passage. You grow, right? Growing in grace and in knowledge. Often it's translated as silence. Suppose the translator had actually translated it, but I suffer not a woman to teach, right, in the context of within this order, right, the priestly order, right, the priestly order and the churchical order, nor to usurp authority over the man, but to be in quietness, learning in quietness. There's a whole interesting detail to this. If you study the word elsewhere as it's found, it's also applied to certain men. Certain men who have not gone through that rite of passage, bar mitzvah, right, and don't really know, they shut up. You know, I'm about to say, shut the up. You know, don't speak. Like if a man says, oh, on a certain scripture, or doesn't the Bible say somewhere, you better get your facts right and exact before you even allege something. You know, some even say that one had to know and be able to quote the scripture before they can even ask a question on the scripture. And we're speaking about men, right? So in some areas, it even says that the men who are uninstructed and unlearned should remain silent as well. Right? So right here, this word, as you can see in the Strong's definition, the feminine word is stillness. And stillness. Desistance from the bustle. Desistance from the bustle or language. Desistance from language, quietness, silence, so forth and so on. Right? This is how a woman learns in the true sense, in the true context. And it really surprised when a few of the sisters and daughters, they even noted, they say, oh yeah, my husband liked to watch some of the debate videos, like on, say, the YouTube, when the man and them are debating on things, and everybody's shouting, and they say, I can't take that. That's not how I learn. And I remember this particular verse right here. I said, see, it says silent, and many Christians and others twist and turn this verse out of all context. There's a particular context. Here we have the root of the root, right? Hey sukios. What's hey sukios? Woman in a quiet, a tranquil environment. You ever seen the experiment? There's an experiment about like flowers, like somebody having flowers and growing flowers, and like you cursing at the flowers, or you saying all harsh words while you're growing flowers and everything like that, and how that affects the flower, how that affects how the flower buds and how the flower grows. But if you talk to it lovingly, even some flowers or plants that might be a little sick or seem like they're not growing well, if you speak them in a calmer sense, a calmer tone, so forth and so on, they actually start to heal, recover, become green, become beautiful, and all of that, because of how it goes about. This is how women, right? This is how women, generally speaking. Now, yes, many women had to, I guess, step up in situations where men or the man them wasn't there, or the males were not men, because there's a difference between being a male and being a man. Even the scripture points that out. There's many different words that underlie the words that are often simply translated in the latter-day English sense and the latter-day English language right here, right? So see what right here? Here's Strong's definition of hesukios, right? A prolonged form of a compound, probably of a derivative of the base of. You know how we get into that? A lot of times maybe it's always not for all the women on that level. They can pick up, they can learn. Not saying they can't learn, so from so on, but they learn, generally speaking, differently, properly, keeping one's seat sedentary, that is, by implication, still not being disturbed. Sometimes for us as the sons, right, we like that disturbance, like they get in on it, and to get in on it, you know what I mean, to see if you can shake one, even if they're correct of what they might have said. They might just be regurgitating something that somebody else says. You want to prove their mettle, test that phrase, test their mettle, so to speak. But for the woman, it's a different environment. It is peaceable. It is more of a quiet environment for woman, according to the true nature, according to the true nature. And this is what is being brought forward here in this particular verse. But some just take the first part of it where it says, but I suffer not a woman to teach. And it's a comma there, right? Nor to usurp authority over the man. There's a comma there, but to be in stillness, in silence, in an undisturbed environment, because remember Paul, we call him tonight Rav Shaul, he was a student of Gamaliel, right, one of the ancient Judaic Jewish sages, so from so on, and even among many of the latter-day Jews, and even I people, the black Jews, the Lion tribe of Judah, it is like that when we go in the yeshiva, we go in a study, so from so on, and if a man can't really, you can say, rock and roll to it, it's like, what's wrong with you? You didn't really have that bar mitzvah, that true bar mitzvah, that true rite of passage, right? Because mine, in that maturity, have to deal with certain things. That's what we say, that if you're scared, right, go to church, you know what I mean, and be quiet and learn and come to that rite of passage, that bar mitzvah, right, where you can grow in grace and in that knowledge, right, and won't be so, off-ended, right, or like to feminize, as it were, get upset, so forth and so on, right? But anyway, back to the main point right here. Can a woman teach? And as we have been saying, that the woman or the mother is the first teacher. The mother is the first teacher of children. And a good mother or a good woman is going to prepare that child for further instruction. They used to have this thing where they said that in some tribes and everything, as a child gets older, like they come to the age roughly around the 13, that bar mitzvah time and everything, how they would test the children, the sons, to see whether they could sit, whether they can, sit, be still, right, receive instruction, and some are, like running around, they're immature, they have no self-control, whatever. Those are things that a good mother is supposed to teach, the child, right? Even sometimes the girl children, right, are kind of like taught, right, while the male children are just kind of like just left to themselves. And then they become no good, right, for themselves or for their true responsibilities, right, within society. This is what's happened to the once lost, now found, the black and brown, black people. This is generally what has happened over the past 40, right, to 60 years, generally speaking. Yeah, they got the youth. They got a lot of they're not afraid, but they're also very foolish too. Very foolish, right? And a lot of their reactions are not truly, really mature, refined, male to man reaction, but really feminine reaction. And because of the whole aberration of the situation, many of the women even have more, you could say, male reactions and in a sense, thought patterns than many of the so-called sons. They're easily offended, while sometimes the woman can, understand, okay, I was wrong. Okay, yeah, you checked me on that, and would, make that adjustment. But the men are, boo-hoo, so forth and so on, because they have not been properly instructed from the womb, right? From the womb to tomb, from the womb, and all that's before them would be the tomb, because real men are not going to really tolerate that. I mean, they're going to be good for nothing. It's like in the military, the army, when the commander or the training officers are giving them the training, what's wrong with you? You too, such and such. Now, I know a lot of that has been taken out of the military and so forth and so on, but that's a sort of discipline that has kind of kept society on a certain level, because you need to have the man, right, in the proper order and the proper discipline to do the man things, right, the man things. I know this might go against the popular latter day such and such, but the chaos, confusion, that is being caused by that eventually will have ones reconsidered what many of the ancients understood and knew, and really helped, we could say, society before the whitewashing and the lie of the white patriarchy and white supremacy basically upped up the whole situation, right? But anyway, let's go right here. One more quote, one more verse right here. We can get into the more of the context, because this part in Timothy is talking about prayer, the divine order. There is an order of the sexes, regardless of what ones and ones tell you today. And yes, some of them are born that way. The scripture says that, as soon as they're born, speaking lies. As soon as they're born, speaking lies. So some are born, the way that they are born, from the womb. The womb is so very important, and also the mother's instruction. So simply put, can a woman teach? Yes, a woman can teach. A woman is the first teacher, right? A woman is the first teacher of the youth, of the child. And in fact, even in Proverbs, though it says the Proverbs of Solomon, but if you read and study the book of Proverbs, one thing you begin to recognize, the book of Proverbs, the instructor in spirit and in truth is wisdom, is Chokmah, what we call the Hebrew Sophia. She is teaching, she is instructing. And Solomon and Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon was so wise because he understood that. He understood that fact, right, that the instructor, right, of wisdom on that level is the woman, right, in the context of the wise woman, because in Proverbs he distinguishes between the two. Well, he is basically communicating her teaching. But here we have Proverbs 1:8, my son, hear the instruction of thy father. The father has a role, but the first teacher of the child is the woman, that is to say, the mother. And forsake not the law. Now, when we talk about law, what we saying law? The law is Torah. The law is what? Torah. The law is Torah. And the Torah of who? The Torah of thy mother. My son, hear, Shema, hear, Shema, hear, Shema. Hear the instruction. Hear the instruction, the musar. What is the musar? The discipline, the chastening. All right, like I've said, this is my own personal experience, that my earthly mother never had to really raise a hand to me. I mean, things she said, yeah, but it was my father, right? She would say, I'm going to tell your father, right? And my father would, he would beat me, right? Yes, and that was good for me, right? But even worse, as I got older, he would talk to me. He would actually correct me. And if I didn't sit and listen, I would get the beating. So that was part of the discipline. The discipline is you could say the light aspect, the correction, the discipline. You don't get the light aspect, you turn it up, you're ratcheting it up, so to speak, to get out the ratchetness. Properly, chastisement, reproof, warning, instruction, restraint, bond, chastening, chastisement, check, correction, discipline, doctrine, instruction, rebuke, right, of the Father. And it says, forsake not. Forsake. What does forsake mean? Right? Natash. Natash means to leave, to forsake, to reject. You can see all the different, to leave it alone, to abandon it. Right? Now, so forth, to smite, to disperse, to thrust off. You can see the different, but forsake. Don't forsake the Torah of thy mother, imekah, of thy ima, thy mother. So, in seeing this right here and understanding the context of this, the instruction of the father. So the mother, the womb, man, the mother is the first instructor of the child. And that instruction or that teaching is what? Torah, because that's what Torah means. So let's bring it up again. The law, the word for Torah right here, law, direction, instruction. Law, direction, instruction. Law, direction, instruction. Let's go down here. Law, direction. When we get to the root of it, the root of Torah, right, is the H3384 from Yara. Yara and Yara. Yara and Yara. What is Yara? Yara, to throw, to shoot, to cast. Okay, let's go down here. Let's get to the Strongs, right? Primitive root, properly to flow as water. Water, a feminine, right, element. That is to say, rain. Transitively, to lay, to throw, especially to the figurative sense that we're going to get to right here. To point out. What your mother should point out. And that teaching to point out to you certain things, to point out. You see what it says to teach? Do you see what it says to teach? Let's just highlight that right here in case one can't see it. To teach. And the connection with the archer is like you aiming a bow, a proper aim, right? So a good mother has a good aim, right? To cast, direct, inform, instruct, lay, to shoot it at you. In other words, teach. You see, teach, teacher, teaching, right? Teaching. Right? So we already know. So when Paul said what he said in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 12, he said at this point, right, we need our mother, right? Because the Torah is our the Torah is already our nanny, our pedagogue, our schoolmaster. He talks about that elsewhere within the epistles. Was already that schoolmaster. One more verse we want to show you right here. The verse from Roboni. Right, Robeno, Yeshua, HaMoshiach. What he says that wisdom, right, is justified by all of her children. So let's go to children, wisdom being justified by all of her children. Let's go here. Boom, there we go right there. Luke 7:35. But wisdom, she is justified of all her children. Another note on the book of Proverbs, right? Proverbs basically is instruction to young males. It caught me as a curiosity that, wisdom needs to be taught to young males. It almost implies that the woman, generally speaking, right, already kind of has that there. Maybe it has to be refined. It could be good wisdom. It could be bad wisdom. It could be wisdom from above, wisdom from below. Paul talks about that elsewhere. I think, no, actually James, Jacob, the first bishop of Jerusalem, speaks about that in the book of James. It's about two kinds of wisdom: wisdom from above and wisdom from below and everything. But that wisdom had to be instructed. You see, my son, my son, my son. And then you see wisdom is she. She is instructing my son, my son, my son, my son. And King Solomon, right, the wisest man of his time, of his age, right, was so wise that he understood the importance of this, that the ancient wisdom, yes, Amenemope and so forth and so on. Some say yes, but this is the ancient wisdom. Right? Rain comes from heaven on all, the good, the bad, the sun shines on all. But he was able to put this within a document that we know as Proverbs. So that was the instruction for sons. This is interesting, that wisdom had to be taught to young men. You know what I mean? So we could just stop right there. So does that mean that men is bad and men is this? But no, you can see the strengths. So the two as that divine double helix, the electromagnetic, the male, the female, coming together to keep it lit, right? But there's particular instruction for each of them, but wisdom had to be taught and reminded to the young men, to the sons. Ain't that interesting? That shows on a certain level also the feminine superiority, and also where men, right, would be caught lacking if they were without such instruction, especially from the womb, from the womb, from the womb, from the womb, right? If they didn't get that instruction from the womb, no order of learned men would allow them in their cipher, in their circle, right? They would prefer to have a yento come in, so to speak, if you know what I'm talking about right there, than to have some kind of feminized male that, when I say feminized, I'm saying that his emotional reaction, right, you know, ain't right, because he was not brought up right. He did not receive right and righteous instruction from the first teacher. The first teacher, the woman, his mama. Right? His mama didn't raise him right, right? So a lot of times we look at that even today, you know, with some misreactions of young men, and it's usually their mama didn't raise them right, because we know that how could any father, even if the father wasn't right, if he tolerated that too, right? He wasn't brought up right, and becomes a kind of a generational consequence that the Bible will call a generational curse. So can a woman teach? Of course. Of course. A woman can teach. In fact, it's the first teacher who is the mama, right? The mother. And we've proven that with Proverbs 1 and 8, also with the words of Robenu, I Rabbi, the Rabbi of Rabbis, our black Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMoshiach, where he said that wisdom is justified, is made righteous. Wisdom, the same Chokmah, Hebrew Sophia that King Solomon was speaking about, and Robenu is the greater than Solomon, as we also have in the gospel. Verified, check. Asked and answered. Yes, the woman can teach, the first teacher. But now, when we come into the cipher of the kahuna, the priesthood, we come to the cipher of the true church, there's a responsibility on those males who truly are mine, who truly are men. And this is according to the order, right? The order, the order, the order. Right? After the order of Melchizedek, after the order of Melchizedek. Yes, Rastafari. So, yes, brothers and sisters, here. We of the Royal Order of Ethiopian Hebrews, after the order of Melchizedek, here, the Lion of Judah Society of His Majesty, Lion of Judah Synagogue, yes, I of the King of Kings. Shalom, Chabarim, Shalom. So let's get it right. Put it in context, all right? Put it in context. Yes, the woman can teach. Not can teach, is that's her response. That's by nature. It is built into the nature. Now, what sort of things the woman might teach, it also depends on the particular kind of woman, right? Yes, I. And fathers, love your daughters. Yes, I. in truth and righteousness as well, because they potentially will be those mothers, the first teachers of the children.